And
really excited.
How much trouble are we in, legitimately?
I mean, it's pretty bad already, and it's going to get, I think, a lot worse. So
it's not bad right now, right here. It's raining. It seems nice out. The hills.
I mean,
are
how
green.
long ago were the fires? Right around
I
the
got
corner.
evacuated. It was October.
Yeah,
it was rough. But in all fairness, I've been evacuated 3 times over the past 20 years.
Yeah, I know the fires. California's fires are kind of interesting in that they both seem like it's like the future, the apocalypse. They're here, but also it's so familiar from like decades of wildfires. But you know, there are scientific estimates that say that they're going to get, by the end of the century, 64 times worse.
What?
Yeah, I think that number's a little high because that would mean more than half of California burning every year. But I mean, it's going to get, it'll get crazy.
And there's no way to avoid any of this wildfire stuff?
Well, I mean, you know, if we don't raise the temperature of the planet, then...
But is that the only thing that's causing wildfire? I mean, like, obviously, if the temperature raises, there's more brown, dry leaves and grass and stuff like that. But
there's a lot of preventative stuff you can do. I mean, not building in certain areas. Like, right. I mean, it used to be, you know, the Indians who lived here before the white people came did a lot of controlled burning. They like lived among fires, and I think that's like a probably more responsible way to be. But we've now built up the whole state so that there are all these homes that we don't want to burn. There are all these, you know, properties we don't want to burn. And when you like restrict the ability of natural wildfires to burn, that means that like more tinder gets built over time, and then, you know, at some point something lights the match and it all burns. So I mean, you could do more controlled fire. You could take more aggressive action in terms of you know, like spraying foam and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. You could have a lot more firefighters. But I was just talking to a guy yesterday. I'm out here actually doing some reporting on wildfires, and who was saying that no Santa Ana powered wildfire has ever been stopped by firefighters. And he is like a environmental historian.
Wow.
It's like you can hope that the winds redirect them, but like the action of firefighters is basically just spitting in the wind. So
the action is not to stop it, it's to kind of contain it.
Yeah.
As best they can.
Yeah.
And minimize property damage.
Yeah, but you know, it's hard because you have a lot more, it's a lot easier to do that when, you know, if the land was totally raw, you'd be like, oh, we'll just like try to direct the fire in this direction. But if the land is like full of homes, you're like, well, we can't. You know what I mean?
Have you ever seen it live? Have
Not
you
in
ever been to
person.
one?
Yeah.
One time we were filming Fear Factor, and we were way up on the 5, like probably I would say maybe 75 miles from here. And for a full hour, driving about 50 miles an hour, there was fire on the right-hand side of the road for a full hour. I mean, like Lord of the Rings, end of the world.
Yeah.
Like you're waiting for Satan to come riding on a burning phoenix over the top of the hill. It was crazy. I'd never seen anything like it in my life. That was the worst one I've ever seen. But I think that was just because of placement. I think that this past one was actually worse in terms of physical damage and size. It's just I didn't see it the way I saw this one.
Well, last year there were flames like hopping over the 405, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's really like crazy to me because, you know, I'm a New Yorker. I've lived my whole life in New York, and I just feel in my bones, I now know it's sort of not true, but like my inner emotional perspective on the world is that I live in a fortress. I don't live in nature.
Right.
Like I walk down on concrete streets. I look up at steel buildings. Nature can't come for me.
Right.
But when you see like fire straddling the 405, that's, you know, this is a major metropolis here, and we're not safe. We're certainly not totally safe. And that's like, for me, that's a major revelation I've had, is that wherever you live, no matter how defended against nature you are, climate change is teaching us that, you know, you still live within climate, and when it gets fucked up, it will fuck you up. It will affect you in some way. Yeah,
there was both sides of the 405 were on fire last year. Last year or the year before last, one of those. But it was insane. It was it was hitting Bel Air, and people were like, "Well, this we've never seen this before." I talked to a firefighter once. This was years ago, and he told me with the right wind, it's a matter of time for a fire hits the top of LA and burns all the way to the ocean. And he goes, and there's not going to be anything we could do about it. He goes, if the right wind catches and a fire starts at the top of Los Angeles, it'll just go straight through LA. Look at this. What is that from, Jamie?
It was the 405 fire. But
yeah. Okay. Oh, that's it. That's the crazy video. So this is Bel Air on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And so these are people driving down the 405 looking at, the most insane sight for a place that has 30 million people or whatever LA has, to see the entire hillside on fire.
And Bel Air, to me, Bel Air is really interesting because it's, most climate impacts, they hit the world's poorest first. And like the wildfires they work in the reverse because it's like people living in the hills.
Yeah.
Those are the rich people. But it just shows you, like, no matter how rich you are, no matter how comforted by that wealth you are, like, you might get hit.
Well, the best example was Point Doom.
Yeah.
And we were flying over it. My friend Bill, he has a helicopter license. And so we went around the peak of Point Doom. It's crazy because these are like $20 million estates, these massive bluffside homes. They thought they were living in the peak of luxury, overviewing the ocean, and like, wow, we're on top of the world. And the fire just scorched it to the ground. Like, that's what it looks like now.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Well, it's really crazy because you're like, they couldn't even, because people have always said, oh, well, they'll protect the rich folks. They didn't protect these ones.
Yeah.
They can't protect anybody when it gets this crazy. I think they lost more than 600 homes in Malibu alone.
Yeah, yeah. And you think about Miami Beach going underwater. And
right.
I mean, it's...
well, Miami Beach is a weird one, right? Because the ground is porous.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's inevitable. You got to get out of there.
That's basically a sandbar that like some developers in the 20s decided that was, we can make this into a fake paradise.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, LA is kind of the same way. Like, nobody looking at LA in 1850 would have said, like, here's a great place to build a city.
Right.
But we did it anyway. Like, America, in its like imperial swagger, was like, no, we can create some paradise out of this completely inhospitable land in both places. And then, it's just a lesson that, like, it's just a matter of time.
Well, the most cocky people are the people that have those houses on stilts on the water.
Yeah.
In Malibu. Like,
yeah.
How long is this going to work out for you?
Yeah.
Like, this thing moves back and forth over time, and it has forever.
I mean, if you think about like the long, long sweep of human history, most human settlements didn't happen on the coast.
Right.
Like, people maybe they lived on a river. Maybe you have like a little community on a river. But the last like 50 years or 100 years, we've built up, especially in America, so much more on the coast. And that's like, really inviting disaster. I mean, all of Houston, like all of that is like, that was floodplain that like nature was like, it was swampland. And now it's, new suburban developments made out of concrete. And that just means more and more flooding.